it out and let us know that you're here. If you have any questions or any feedback, it's a great place to put that down. If you want prayer support, you can put that on there, and our prayer chaplains will be praying with you through the week. If you ask for information, somebody from our staff will call you back. Yes, and yes, and yes. Now, it's the time that we get to tell our neighbors good morning. So you new folks, okay, if you don't feel like being hugged, we're big huggers here, okay? Just reach your hand out and tell your neighbors good morning. But the rest of you, get up and give your neighbors a hug until you hear the gong.
Well, for those of you who don't know, my name is Ciel. I'd like to tell you a few of our upcoming events. First, there will be a community gathering with our Board of Trustees this coming Sunday, June 4th, following the 11:30 service in the sanctuary. Come learn about the business of your spiritual community and bring your questions and feedback. Unity Basics classes on Tuesdays, June 6th, 13th, and 20th with Reverend Kristen and Ron Salazar will be coming up. Learn about Unity's fundamental beliefs and practices. Attendance at all 3 classes is required to become a member. New members will be celebrated on June 25th. Please sign up at the welcome table. There are 3 weeks left in our current classes, open to all and found in your bulletin. In this Thursday's Tools to Awaken Your Joy, instructed by Tracy Appleton, you will learn guided visualization techniques using water to create powerful intentions, and receive special take-home tools to facilitate this process. And now, Eva, if you'll come up.
Hi, my name is Eva McCaslin, and I'm part of the Youth of Unity here at Unity, and we call ourselves YOU. Last week, the YOU chapter, ours, we met with many of the other chapters from YOU, from the various branches of Unity, as we do twice a year, and we had our May Rally, which is an action-packed weekend full of self-growth, discovery, unconditional love, spiritual dancing, educational group activities, and more. We were able to deepen our connections with others, as well as with ourselves and our higher beliefs. May and November rallies are such powerful and life-changing workshops, and I think I can safely say when I speak for everyone who attends them that we truly benefit from them, and they are so unique and positive. That's why I'm really excited to announce that last week at our May Rally, I was elected to be a regional officer, one of 4 one of 4 individuals that make up our regional team. Together, we get to create the next 3 annual workshops, so the May Rally, the Fall Rally, and then our leadership weekend. And we get to lead our peers through them. I hope to bring creativity and positive energy to the 2017 and 2018 regional team, and I am so grateful for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva. And now John has something to share with us.
Good morning. Ooh, I'll stand back. A couple of months ago, I did the Q process with Reverend Denise. And I was eager to do it because I had had a major trauma that gave me PTSD and that I've never been able to let go of. 22 years ago this happened, and I still never let it go. I used to sit and rage at the television. Whenever any male was threatening someone, I would just go bazookas. And I didn't have any way to deal with the way it manifested in my life because I never knew what was really causing it. I thought I was a pretty smart guy, and so it should be obvious and easy for me to fix, but it was not. So what I learned in the Q process is that we are usually, frequently, almost always even, driven by things we're not aware are there. They live in the shadows of our mind, and they sneak out when we stop paying attention and make us miserable. But since we don't know how to identify them or deal with them, we just live with the misery. And I did for many, many years. Turned out it was a belief I held about myself since back when I was the smallest kid in my 8th grade class. So those feelings have been there a long time. Now, for most of you, it's something that happened yesterday or a week ago or a year ago, and I'm sure some of you share my long-term experience. But after going through that full-day event and the 3 following evening sessions, I was actually able to let go of that and not have it making me uncomfortable and unhappy anymore and act out in unreasonable ways. If any of you share that plight with me, I highly recommend you come Saturday to the Q process with Reverend Denise. I know it made a difference in my life, and I know it will in yours.
Thank you, John, for sharing that vulnerability. And Kristen.
Yeah, thank you, John. I want to second that. A beautiful testimonial of that experience. I also went through the Q process and highly recommend it. Today's the last day to register, by the way. So please register in the bookstore if you would like to come, and we'll see you on Saturday. And I want to tell you about one more event that's happening this week on Wednesday. This is part of the 2020 vision that was had about this year. So this year, in 2017, this year was claimed here at Unity of Walnut Creek as the year of wholeness and happiness. Sound good? Are you in? All right, so far so good. So on the 5th Wednesday throughout this year, we have a special summit on a topic that relates to wholeness and happiness. And we've already had one this year. The next one is this Wednesday, and it's on relationships. You have a flyer that you've had in your bulletin for several weeks. So take a look at the details here. I'll be presenting with Kathleen Sims and Carolyn Jansen. Carolyn will be focused on relationships with others, Kathleen with the relationship with self, and I'll be looking at the relationship with spirit, specifically through the lens of nature. So if you want to shore up your relationships, and basically that's life, right? Life is relationship. So if you want to shore up life and come with us for some presentation and discussion, come join us on Wednesday evening at 7. Thanks.
Thank you. And find out more about these events and other activities in your bulletin and online. And now let's enjoy another selection by the Monroe Quartet.
All right, this is a song about love. Loving yourself, loving God, loving others. L is for the light in you and me. O, because you're the only power I see. V is very, very extraordinary. E is even more than anything that I adore, and love is all that I can give to you. Love is more than just a game or two. Take a look inside us, find the power, and love will guide us. Love was made for me and you. vault. All right. In me. Oh, 'cause you're the only power that I see. V is very, very extraordinary. E is even more than any little thing that I adore, and love is all that I can give to you. Oh, love, it's more than just a game or two. Take a look inside us, find that power, yeah, love will guide us. Love was made for me and you. Oh, love was made for me and you. Ooh, love was made for me and you. Ooh, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Bobby. Did you know that Bobby is no longer a heart minister? She's a prayer chaplain. Yesterday we had a meeting, and the formerly known as heart ministers decided to call themselves prayer chaplains because they wanted in one title to communicate what they do. And so I'd like to introduce Bobby to start out our meditation time. So this begins our meditation with a reading, and followed by some music, guided meditation, and extended silence. So just get yourselves comfortable and enjoy this time of meditation.
Today's daily word is divine expression. I am designed to see light and love. Ralph Waldo Emerson described prayer as the soliloquy of a beholding and jubilant soul. Divine Spirit is always inviting me to behold and love within my heart and to celebrate it. I was born with unlimited capacity of joy and love, so it's easy for me to live as the jubilant soul Emerson identified. When I pray, I acknowledge truth's expression in my being. I acknowledge the divine expression in all living things. I release any preconceived images and ideas about people and situations, and instead behold the divine in each one. From this highest viewpoint, I see goodness in all. With a gladness of heart, I embrace my proclivity to see the divine in me and around me. For in him we live and move and have our being, as even some of your poets have said, for we too are his offspring.
The light in me now sets me free. I am one with God. The light in me now sets me free. I am one with God. The light in me now sets me free. I am one with
So now resting in that oneness. Here, where we settle into communion with Spirit. The idea of self and spirit begins to meld into one. As we begin to tune in to the peace, the love, ever present here. Whatever problems or concerns we thought we had a moment ago, disperse. Any darkness dispelled in the presence of the light. For the truth is that I am divine. I invite you to say that to yourself, within or out loud. I am divine. Notice how this truth feels within you. Notice if there's any resistance, any tension, sensations or thoughts that feel contrary to that truth. Hold fast and strong to the truth. I am divine. Any thought of lack or limitation or not enough falls away. So allowing this affirmation to penetrate our consciousness more fully, taking it deeper into our silent time and deeper into our hearts. Let us rest with this truth in the silence. we emerge from this quiet time, remembering the truth of who we are. Allowing the ease and the flow of Spirit as us to move us back into the presence of this place and time. And the full presence of our lives and our beings. Thank you, God. And so it is.
The light in me now sets me free. I am one with God.
You are the light of the world. You are the light of the world. But if that light's under a bushel, it's lost something kind of crucial. You've got to stay bright to be the light of the world. You are the salt of the earth. You are the salt of the earth. But if that salt has lost its flavor, it ain't got much in its favor. You can't be that fault and be the salt of the earth. So let your light so shine before men. Let your light so shine so that they might know some kindness again. We all need help to feel fine. I feel divine. You are the city of God. You are the city of God. But if that city's on a hill, it's kind of hard to hide it well. You've got to stay pretty in the city of God. Let your light so shine before men. Let your light so shine so that they might know some kindness again. We all need help to feel fine. I feel divine. You are the light of the world. You are the light of the world. But the tallest candlestick ain't much good without a wick. You've got to stay bright to be the light of the world. You've got to stay bright to be the light of the world. You've got to stay bright to be the light of the world. Oh, yeah. Ooh.
Yeah, with some energy. You are the light of the world, huh? Where's God? Anybody know? Right here. All right, you already got it. As you know, we're in a series, a foundational series of unity, the 5 basic principles. And last week we talked about the nature of God. Short form, God is. Second principle is us. I am this truth, right? This divinity. I am. That's what we're exploring today. And then the short form of the other 3 is Think it, pray it, know it. Live it, excuse me. Think it, pray it, live it. So, in the second principle, we sort of extend from that knowing from last week that God is everywhere present, right? There were a couple of little boys that were getting into a lot of trouble. They were actually twin brothers. And they were getting into a lot of trouble at their church. They were causing a lot of disruption in their youth classes. And so the minister finally said, I guess I need to talk to these young boys. So she said, why don't one of you wait outside? I want to talk to you one at a time. And she had this great plan to have kind of a philosophical conversation with them to begin. And so the first boy comes in and he sits down and she goes right into it. And she says, "Where is God?" Well, he starts getting real sweaty in the palms and shaky in the knees and can't find the door fast enough, And he's like, oh no, his breathing's getting shallow. And finally he just says, "I gotta go to the bathroom." And he jumps up and he runs out and he just keeps running. And so his brother just runs with him, like, wow, something terrible must have happened. So they're running and they're running and they're running together. And the brother says, "Why are you running? What happened in there?" And he says, He said, "We are really, really in trouble this time." And his brother says, "What? What happened?" And he said, "They lost God." And they think we took him. There is some truth to this, though, isn't there? On this Memorial Day weekend, let this be our day of remembrance of the truth of who we are, this divine knowing of who we are. And what does it mean and how does it look when we remember? And what does it mean and how does it look when we forget? We all know, don't we? You can think of instances in your own life when you forget and when you remember. This is the only difference. If you think there's a difference between us and a divine master who has really realized this understanding, such as Jesus, the only difference, it's not like they came in more special or anointed. We're all sons and daughters of this entity, this thing, this energy we call God. The difference is that they never forgot. That's the only difference. They never forgot. And most of us tend to forget and remember and forget and remember, right? We're on this wave of amnesia and remembering and amnesia and remembering. Yeah. There's another story of some children, which you may have heard before. There's a little girl about 3 years old, and she has a younger brother. And the baby brother is in the crib. And one day mom and dad aren't around, and she's been dying to ask her brother, who's pretty much pre-verbal at this point, but she wants to ask anyway because she has a feeling he can tell her in some way. And mom is standing longs and standing in the doorway, notices her coming up in the darkened bedroom up to the crib, puts her little hands on there. So the mom witnesses, the little girl says, "Tell me about God. I'm starting to forget." She could have just as easily said, "Tell me who I am. I'm starting to forget." We come into this world and we learn from each other the best that we can, right? And we make mistakes. That's what we call sin. Sin is just missing the mark, making mistakes. It comes from an archery term. But the way that our churches have understood it and taught it, and many of us have gone through these kinds of teachings, is that we are born into this world sinful, which makes no sense, right? We're created in the image and the likeness of God, we're told. We're made in the image and likeness of Spirit. We looked at that a couple of weeks ago. We're of this source. We have this entity. God is everywhere present. Why would God stop at the boundaries of our skin? God is everywhere, in us, through us, as us. And yet there is this idea, that kind of old way of thinking of sin or being born in this idea of original sin, I call that one the acronym self-imposed negativity. Or maybe it's sin with a C, church-imposed negativity, because a lot of it came through that, right? Through these orthodox teachings. Well-meaning, I'm sure, but for most of us, it created a long line of unlearning that we're now, many of us in our midlife or whenever we wake up to this, unlearning and relearning again, remembering who we were when we were those innocent little children. I got to do a christening last week here, my first one here. Anthony Hendricks Ebinger, very proud little boy in his full silk whites. You know, I don't know how he wasn't speaking yet, he's an infant. Really, it was just his first birthday, so he's 1. The biggest cheeks I have ever seen. I mean, I just wanted to pinch those little cheeks. And he was so divine, you know? He just emanated this truth and this power and this love and this, you know how it is when you look in an infant's eyes. It's like you could just go off into everland. You know, there is that knowing that this being comes from divinity, remembers it comes from divinity. And that's how this boy was, who I got to hold and take around, let everybody bless him. So when we can be around these young beings, we are reminded again and again and again of this purity, of this divinity, of this truth of who we are. You know, when we're around children, we're so forgiving too. You know, they're learning to walk and they fall, and we all laugh and encourage and help them up and say, oops, oopsie. Wouldn't it be nice if we did that with each other? You know, oopsie, you made a mistake. Let me help you up. Oh, oopsie, you hurt my feelings. Let me help you up. You know, so this is the way. And Jesus said this, the children, you know, become like a child. That's how you enter into the kingdom. I believe that's what he meant. Remember who you are. Don't forget. And when you do, be kind to yourself and get back on track. Just get back up and keep going. Keep walking this talk, this truth. So if we aren't born in original sin, as many of us were taught, what are we born in? Original blessing, original virtue, the truth of who we are. That's how it's always been and how it was always meant to be. Just somewhere along the way we forgot or got confused and got teachings that weren't helpful to that end. But here we are now, remembering together, right? This is what we do as a community. We come together to remember, to remind. Mind as in consciousness, as in brain and heart. To come back into conscious knowing of who we are. Conscious understanding and remembrance of ourselves as this living Christ, this divine entity, this light and this love on the planet. At this time, special time to be here, special time to be shining that light. So this I am, you've heard the I am that I am, right? Have you heard that? You've heard this term, right? Of course you have. And so what do we mean by this great I am? Or what is its source? So one of the sources goes back to when Moses was on Mount Sinai, and I always have the vision of a Charlton Heston movie playing in my head, so maybe you do too. There he is with his staff and his beard and, you know, the burning bush and the roaring voice of God, right? And Moses was a stutterer. Moses was not a great orator. He didn't understand why he was being called to lead his people. He didn't feel like his gift. And yet he was chosen to do this. And so he tries to get out of it. He tries a lot of, send somebody else, please. Can't you think of someone else? How about my brother or my sister? Somebody else can do this. But no, it's him. It's his to do. And so finally he relents to that and he goes, okay. So if I go down this mountain and I tell my people that I am now the leader and I'm supposed to tell them all these things, can I at least drop a name? Can you tell me who to say sent me? And so the booming voice of God says, I am that I am. This is the name of God we're given. The real name, I am. So what do we do with the I am? Now it's ours to be that. And how can we walk this, talk, and walk this walk? Being mindful of how we use that term. The I am does not get tired. The I am does not get sick. The I am does not have a conflict with her sweetheart. That's not the I am. Sure, the body gets tired once in a while of The brain gets kind of overloaded sometimes. That's our part of our temporal walk. But it's not the I am. So let us be mindful again of how we use these words. Because it's moving us into the third principle, which is co-creation. But as we speak it, so it begins to materialize in this world. So when we are using that power of the I am, that sacred name, in some religions the name cannot even be spoken. It is so sacred, so revered. But we say, no, because we are of it, we can speak it, but let's not misuse it. And so letting speech be one of our guides. How I use my I am. Because when I speak the I am speaking of the highest and the best, the Christ, the divine, the Spirit, the Holy One in me and through me and as me. And that alone is a constant reminder for us then, being aware of our speech. And then we back it up into our thoughts and our feelings and our internal process. So that we're not co-creating that or creating that in our world. And we don't want it inside of us either, right? That misunderstanding, that misguidance of who we really are. Really, the walk with this principle is the walk of worthiness. You know, this is talking about shadow, the shadow side of this divine principle is that I'm not worthy. I don't measure up. And we get that from some of those old teachings that I mentioned, not just from the church, from whatever, society, family, whatever, however it is that we absorb these ideas, that somehow we don't measure up. And so then we live from this lack thinking, this limited thinking, this idea that we are not enough or we are not worthy. But when we take up these simple practices, maybe that you practiced a long time ago, those of you who've been in this kind of spiritual teaching for decades, you know these teachings inside and out. You can speak about them. But our work is to live them, to walk them, right? I've heard so many people say, oh, yeah, unity, it's pretty simple. It's like, oh, you didn't get it. Simple, maybe. Easy? Not always, right? Because every day, every moment of every day, we have an opportunity to walk this divinity that we are, to show up as the truth of who we are, to speak it, to embody it, to act it, to think it, to be it, to feel it. And oh, what a good ride it is when we're there, right? When we're in that flow, it's like everything is just clicking so. We're in that creativity flow. We're in that flow of connection with one another. We're in that sense of belonging and community. Nothing's missing, right? And that's the way it's meant to be. That's the way we were created to be. This isn't the once in a while I get a glimpse of the divine walk. This is I am the divine almost all the time. And once in a while I might forget for a nanosecond and put myself right back on track. Did you notice that in your walk, in this life, in this spiritual journey, that the more you practice earnestly, the quicker you are to realign yourself? Have you noticed that? It doesn't take so long anymore. It doesn't, John's testimony was so beautiful. 22 years I had this one thing, and it was a big thing hanging around. And then one day, and it wasn't just the Q process, I know this. It was a long journey of inner work, but the Q process was sort of the little switch, the final switch from my conversation with John that let it go. That finally said, there's only light here, and the darkness has been chased away. There's only truth here. Now I know who I am. And now I see with compassion the child I was who was in some way hurt and did the best we could in that moment, right, to understand. The child who's going, oh my gosh, they've lost God, and they think we took him or we hit him. Kind of gets that scary sometimes, right? But to be forgiving with one another. To meet the God, goddess, this first principle, this allness of God. I don't want to say in equality, because it's not quite the same as that, but in a way it's like a face-to-face knowing of of what we've been entrusted with. My little goddaughter Grace was visiting last week, and it was so fun to see her next to this Kuan Yin statue we have in our garden that's about this high, and now she's taller than Kuan. But when she came to live with us many years ago, when she was about 10 months until she was maybe 2.5, we had a routine in the morning, and she wasn't even walking. Well, she was standing, but not walking. So I'd take her out, and we would like ring all these chimes, and then I'd bring her over to the Kuan Yin statue, and I would say, "Good morning, Kuan." And so she didn't say a lot of words by then, but I remember the first time she stood, very small, looking up at this statue of the goddess, and this little girl who really had that purity and that innocence and that power, and she said, "Hi, Kuan." And there was just that real sense of, I know who I am, and reverence even, a kind of sense of reverence. That's the kind of reverence we want to have for ourselves and each other and all of life. That's how we walk this principle. That's what it looks like when we walk this principle. One of the things I've been finding is this town is the friendliest town I have ever lived in. I have been really pleasantly surprised by that. Being near a big city, I just did not expect that. But boy, I have met so many really, truly friendly, kind, open-hearted, patient, nice folks. Our neighbors are good folks around here. And yesterday was one demonstration of that this principle permeates this idea that humanity is inherently good and humanity is divine in its nature. It pervades humanity into all life. All things, all beings have this inherent divinity. So there was this little squirrel, and it had been injured. Ultimately, by looking at it closely, it was pretty badly injured. I think it must have fallen off a tree onto the paved path. And some kind soul had come along and put the squirrel to the side of the path. And then Brenda and I were walking with our cattle dog, Chaos, who loves squirrels. And this little squirrel, it had an acorn in its mouth still, but it obviously had suffered some trauma, and it was having really labored breathing. And so the three of us just kind of hung out by the squirrel, and because it had something in its mouth, I could pet it and give it some healing energy and not be afraid that it would bite me. And some other folks came along, and every person who came by either slowed down on their bicycle and said, "Oh, poor squirrel," or is she going to be okay? Do you think she's going to make it? Or people would stop and ask how they could help or thank us for giving the little being some love. And along came a woman who was a volunteer at Lindsay Wildlife over here. And so she and her friend went and got a cat carrier, and they carried the baby squirrel off to Lindsay Wildlife and then asked for our number to text us to let us know how the squirrel was doing. Well, the end of the story is that the squirrel did not make it, that she went on to Cirque du Squirrel heaven. Isn't that what they look like when they're going tree to tree? However, what I witnessed was divinity everywhere. In that place, there was a reverence for life for every bypasser, and a willingness to be patient and to slow down and to see it and to be it and to give that love and compassion. That's it. That's embodying this presence. That's being the divine in this world. It's slowing down. I keep thinking about, I told you this a few weeks ago, that as I reread Gandhi's work on ahimsa, the idea of nonviolence, one of the ways he expressed what violence is undue haste. That one's really been sticking with me. It's like, oh, yeah, undue haste. That is a kind of violence against ourselves. And so that slowing down is a part of how we can be then present with this truth of who we are and see it in one another and see it in all life. There was a whole community of monks who had kind of forgotten this truth of who their brothers were in particular, and who they were as a collective community. It had at one time been a very vibrant community, a very vibrant monastery. There were people that came from all over the community to picnic on Sundays on these gorgeous grounds. and to stay and go to the Vespers where the monks would chant and pray and to be in that just lovely energy. But over the years, the place had kind of fallen into disrepair. The grounds had been overrun by wild weeds, and the monks were getting older, and some of them actually kind of crotchety, to be honest. And so it wasn't really the place it had once been. And the head abbot was now getting very concerned. The abbot was very concerned about his community. And so he thought, well, maybe I should go visit the wise rabbi who lives in the cabin in the woods. And so he went off in search of some wisdom and some advice and came to the cabin, and the rabbi, of course, welcomed him in, and they had a nice long chat. And the abbot told him all about the glory days of the monastery, which the rabbi was well aware of, and the decline of the monastery, which the rabbi was also very well aware of. But he listened patiently, and he said, I wish I had some advice for you. I don't have anything for you. But one thing I do know is that the Christ is amongst you and your brothers at the monastery. Oh, that got the abbot thinking. And as he was walking back through the forest, he began to think about his brothers. And he thought, well, could it be Brother Lawrence? No, not Brother Lawrence. Surely not. Brother Lawrence has gotten really pretty angry, actually. He's not very kind with the other brothers. Well, could it be Brother Simon? Well, I don't know how God feels about, not very good hygiene, but Brother Simon, he's really let himself go. And so it goes, through the brothers and Brother Edward. But Brother Edward, boy, he doesn't feel his prayers at all. I don't know what happened, but he went flat years ago, and he just seems to be in this period of aridity in his spiritual expression. And so, he went through all the, and me, well, certainly it's not me, And he went back and he told his other brothers, and they all had kind of a similar thought process. They all went through kind of the other brothers and themselves, and nope, couldn't be, But then they all kind of also began to think, well, what if? Well, what if it is Brother Lawrence? Well, he certainly can be really kind and present and patient at times. He certainly has a big heart. And well, Brother Simon, he actually is quite a good cook, and he does seem to kind of practice his prayer while he's cooking, and so on. And so they began to kind of see the good in one another, and then they began to treat each other, just in case any one of them could be the Christ, with a lot of reverence and honor, right? Like we would if the Buddha or Jesus walked in the door right now, we all would go, oh, let's stop what we're doing, and please come on stage, and can we get you anything? And did you need, this is what we would do, right? The fine guest, the master, has arrived. Guess what? You are the master. The people in your home are masters. The people next door are masters. The people you work with, even the people who push your buttons. Because we are all the sons and daughters of the source energy that is pure light, pure love. We see it all the time. We see the best of humanity expressing divinity all the time. We just have to look with those eyes. That's what we're looking at. And so guess what happened in the monastery? I bet you can finish the story. As they began to see each other and honor one another, the place began to thrive again. And the energy began to radiate out into the community, and people came from all over once again, and people came and wanted to serve and to beautify the grounds and help them and raise funds to fix the ailing structures. And everybody wanted to be a part of the Vespers, and young monks came in again and were interested in becoming a part of the brotherhood there. And this is what happens when we remember. This is how we repair what we think is unfixable in our world, or at least broken in our world. It's not hard to tune into the news and see all the problems, or to look around our world, or to hear the sirens and wonder what's gone on now. But what do we do with that? We embody the fifth principle and take action as the divine by being it in the world. This is our inherent goodness in action, a remembrance of who we are and how we came in so pure, so true, so knowing of who we are. We just have had a little amnesia occasionally, that's all. And we come together in this community so that we can bring back together, remember together, remind ourselves together of who we truly are. So let's close out with an affirmation together. Here it comes. I behold the divine in me and all life. Let's say that together. I behold the divine in me and all life. I feel it reverberating in your hearts, and we will see it as it manifests even greater things in our lives and in this community. Bless you.
Thank you, Kristen. So I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to say to your divine spirit, I remember who I am. So together, I remember who I am. One more time. I remember who I am. Thank you, thank you. And I remember who you are. And I know you remember who each and every one of you is. Thank you for being here today. Our new prayer chaplains are here with you for that beautiful spiritual purpose of an individual prayer, which gives you the opportunity to have your intentions raised up in consciousness. They'll be the ones with the lavender stoles. So we have Bobby and we have Barbara. Who else do we have? Would you guys stand for a minute? Garrett's here. So we have several heart ministers that are here to pray with you if you would like. And now it's time for our prosperity celebration. Now, prosperity means that we are prosperous, and this is one of the most beautifully prosperous churches I have ever been a part of. It is also one of the most generous churches that I've ever been a part of. So thank you for your gifts. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the effort that you make to make Unity Center what it is. Now, in truth, there is no lack or limitation because abundance is our true nature. And there's multiple ways that you can give financially here. You can give a check, you can give cash, you can do push pay, and if you're online, you can go to that watch live page and hit the button. Thank you for being here with us today. So take your tithes and your love offering in your hands. And if you're sharing them with somebody else, it's always kind of nice to hold hands. And with me, let's affirm our blessing. Divine love, one with me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. I am joy-filled and grateful. Thank you.
One, two, three, four.
This will be an everlasting love. This will be the love I've waited for. This will be the one time anyone feels for me. Whoa, I'm so glad you found me in time, and I'm so glad that you rectified my mind. This will be the best time anyone has loved me. Whoa, loving you is some kind of wonderful, because you've shown me just how much you care. You've given me the love of a lifetime and made me believe I've got more love to share. This will be an everlasting love. Oh, sing it with me now. Brought a lot of sunshine into my life. You filled me with happiness more than I ever knew. You gave me more things than I ever dreamed of. And no one can take the place of you. This will be you and me. Yes, sirree. Eternally. So long as I'm living, true love will be given to you. I'll be saving because you're so deserving. You're so deserving. You're so deserving. Yeah, 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 yeah. Ooh, love, 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 love. From now on, love. From now on, from now on, love. From now on, from now on, love. This will be.
I invite our ushers forward so that we may bless our offerings. Oh, they're still coming. Wow, the good still comes. All right. Well, let's rub our hands together and get ready for a blessing. We give thanks for these gifts. Come on forward, Tim. The offering. Thank you. We've got all kinds of gifts, children and... So these are emblems of the goodness that we are, the abundance, the generosity of the Spirit within us that overflows, pressed down, shaking together, overflows with goodness. Let us speak this affirmation together. We give thanks for the ever-increasing, unceasing flow of absolute good in our lives now. And that absolute good that is within every one of us. Thank you. Let's sing our children in.
We are marching in the light of God. 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 We are marching, marching, we are marching, marching, we are marching in the light of God. Marching, we are marching, marching, we are marching in the light of God.
Tell us a little bit about what you did today, Lonnie.
Well, we have Rosie here is going to read our second unity principle.
I am naturally good because God's divinity is in me and everyone.
And where do you feel that at?
Church.
Yay. And where do you feel God's love?
I love Daddy. And my stomach. Everywhere.
All right. Well, as you can see, all of us are learning the 5 basic principles or revisiting them all together as a full community. So I encourage you to visit with our children at home, to have the same conversations that we're all celebrating together, the divinity within us this week. So let's close out with our prayer of protection and our peace song. The prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And our peace song. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as our presence. the light and the love and the peace on earth right now. So let your light shine and have fun.
Because we're going to start with that bass. You are the light of the world. You are the light of the world. But if that light's under a bushel, it's lost something kind of crucial. You've got to stay bright to be the light of the world. You are the salt of the earth. You are the salt of the earth. But if that salt has lost its flavor, it ain't got much in its favor. You can't be at fault and be the salt of the earth. So let your light so shine before men. Let your light so shine, so that they might know some kindness again. We all need help to feel fine. I feel divine. You are the city of God. You are the city of God. But if that city's on a hill, it's kind of hard to hide it well. You've got to stay pretty in the city of God. Go! Play, 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 play! You are the light of the world, yeah. You are the light of the world. But the tallest candlestick ain't much good without a wick. You've got to stay bright to be the